So I'm very happy to be here. And they gave me 30 minutes, and I'm going to talk about creativity and play. And just to start, for you who think that, what's this made-up word that he has put up on the slide, I decided I have to put a different word up there, because when I started researching on this, on play, I realized for the first time, I look in a dictionary, and I do not agree with the meaning that you find in a dictionary for play. I'm not sure, but maybe you checked it out before today. But what does it, according to the dictionary, what is the definition of play? Well, the definition of play is this, according to the dictionary. To engage in activity for enjoyment and recreation rather than a serious or practical purpose. That is wrong. Don't you agree? That's 100% wrong. That is not what play is. Right? And everyone plays. Every child plays, but more importantly, every more intelligent animal plays. So if we say that 2 lion cubs are playing, are they doing this without a purpose? Of course not. They are practicing how to kill when they grow up. Sometimes we play maybe without a purpose, but to say that it is rather than a practical purpose is just plain wrong. And it's not only for the animals, it is equally true for kids. Yes, they are having fun. Yes, they're enjoying themselves, but they are also practicing how it is to go and buy in a grocery store. Agree? Yes. So how dare we say that play is not about something purposeful or meaningful? It should be, obvious it should be. Now, as you heard, I am Swedish, but I live in Singapore, and it's very interesting for a Swede living in Asia, looking at how Europe right now is talking about what they should focus on. Because there's a lot of talk in the media, especially, at least I would say especially in Sweden right now, that we need to, Asia, the school in Asia are beating the Europeans, right? They're scoring higher on the tests. We need to learn from Shanghai. We need to learn from Singapore. Well, I live in Singapore. And Singapore are scoring the highest on these measurements, on the tests that we measure students on. So it's interesting to know, what is Singapore talking about right now? Well, they are talking about this. They are talking about the need for the kids to play. This is a speech recently by the Prime Minister of Singapore, and I just had to print out what he said. He said, please let your children have their childhood. Instead of growing up balanced and happy, he grows up narrow and neurotic. No homework is not a bad thing. It's good for young children to play and to learn through play. Singapore Prime Minister, in a speech to the nation, ordering parents to let their kids play, to learn from Europe. And I know Singapore is a very successful country with a lot of growth, and they're most millionaires in the world, and very good, but they're also the least happy country in the world, before Afghanistan. So while we are talking about the need to study, they are talking about learning from Europe, about play. So that's good, that's all good and so on, but I thought that I should talk about something specifically, the way I look at play, which is not normally, it's part of what we talk about when we talk about play, but I would like to say that it is the main thing we should talk about when we talk about play. And it's not about the fact that you're learning how to be practicing on life. That's what we would say is the purposeful thing. No, I would like to talk about something that then I just, for the fun of it, called Playativity. Then here's a definition I found about play that I found more interesting. It's a bit long, but the interesting thing I thought here is to throw off any possible constraints and move in a greater freedom to explore new possibilities, engage in new context or in new social groupings. That is a definition of play that I absolutely sign up to. And when you look at this definition of play, you suddenly realize that this is exactly the same thing as creativity. Now, suddenly play and creativity is the same. Now, this is my main area. For the last 15 years, I have been studying creativity, mostly business creativity, but creativity generally, non-stop, interviewing a lot of creative people about the creative process and so on. So, that's what I'm going to talk about. But what is creativity? Some people have a very broad-minded definition of creativity. It says something magical. It just comes into my head. It just pops up. It's something new. That's a very unpractical way of looking at creativity. I like to look at creativity like this, and this is my favorite definition. Creativity, an idea is that one person takes two formerly known things and combines them in a new way, right? Some person takes two things that already exist and tries to combine them in a way we haven't seen combined before, trying new possibilities. Remember the previous definition. So let me show you quickly some examples. This is a Swedish designer called Alexander Lervik. He took the concept of a lamp, which is a previously known thing, and he took the concept of a swing, which is a previously known thing. Now you take lamp and swing, you combine the two, and what do you get? A swinging lamp. Yes, very good. You get a swinging lamp or a lamping swing. These are the only two things you can think of. So he did a swinging lamp. Looks like this. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it gorgeous? Yes. But it's a lamp that we haven't seen before, combined with swing and a lamp combined. Here's another one. This is an Estonian guy. He took the concept of a sink, which is a previously known thing, and he took the concept of a urinal, which is a previously known thing. Now you take a sink and a urinal, you combine the two, and what do you get? Any creative people in the room? I did this in America recently, and a guy said shower. I said, that's a very honest answer. Exactly, very Anglo-Saxon. No, very human, I would say. Okay, so you can only think about two things now. You either think about a urinal sink or a single urinal. So this is what he did. So most people don't understand, so I've done an illustration. First you pee, then you wash your hands. Now the water used to flush your pee, to wash your hands, is now reused to flush your pee. Is this a good idea, yes or no? If you're obviously. Urinals are usually best for men, period. But is this a good idea, yes or no? Why? Because it? Yes, correct. And creativity is not just taking two things and combining them, it's taking two things and combining them, and the result is better than what we had before. There has to be an element of improvement, okay? Yes, so now we save water. This is a great idea, for example, for Singapore, which has a big shortage of water. It's also good for a few other reasons. It saves time and so on. And space, very good. Yeah, I did this in Singapore recently, and a guy said, it saves time, and you're supposed to say because you don't have to go over to the sink. But he says, but now you can do two things at once. That was not a good idea. Now, the reason I can show millions of definitions of creative ideas, and you will see that they are always a combination of two previously known things, combined in a way we haven't seen before, meaning someone takes two things and plays with them and see what happens in an environment that is safe. And if it turns out to be better than what we did before, then we go out into the real world and we do it. That's how creativity and play is so connected. So here's the problem. And the problem is that we have right now, I would say, huge creativity deficit. Because everyone, European Union, the companies, the schools, everyone talks about why creativity is so important. I have asked more than 100,000 people in more than 50 countries, these countries, do you think creativity is important in your job? Well, you can ask here, why not? Raise your hand. Do you think creativity is important in your job? Raise your hand. Of course, everyone who was listening raised their hands. Everyone always does, all right? It doesn't matter which industry you go to, doesn't matter which country you go to, everyone always says, yes, creativity is important in my job. And by the way, anyone who listens, never talk about the creative industries, all right? That's just crap, okay? There are no creative industries because everyone says creativity is important. From pilots to brain surgeons, to nurses, to politicians, to anyone. Good. So everyone agrees creativity is important. But here's the deficit. Do you think that you are creative? Well, let's see here. Do you think you are creative? Raise your hand. Yeah, welcome to the European Union. Huge confidence. Okay. Normally, less than half say yes. So everyone says it's important, but half say it's important, but I don't have the skill. Actually, in Europe, this is a global average. In Europe, it's slightly higher. In Northern Europe, it's about 60%. In Southern Europe, it's about 80%. Southern Europeans have a higher confidence level than Northern Europeans. You go to America, it's 98%. Americans have huge creative confidences. Then I live in Singapore. Singapore, 20%. One of the lowest level of creative confidence in the world. They're the second worst country in the world, together with Japan, also 20%. Which country has the lowest level of creative confidence? Take a guess. Which country? It's an Asian country. Which country? Yeah, Japan is second. Sorry? China? No. Westerners tend to guess China. China is high. It's like 90% in China. North Korea, who said that? People like you. Hate people like you. People like you, they're trying to put me on the spot right now. They always happen, North Korea, North Korea. So 1 year ago, I went to North Korea just to find out. And I asked every North Korean I could meet, you think creativity is important in your job? And everyone said yes. Second question, do you think you are creative? Every single North Korean said yes. Higher than America. You couldn't be more wrong. North Korea is not the country with the lowest level of creative confidence, it's the country with the highest level of creative confidence, higher than America. But how is that possible? They didn't understand your question. No, they did. They spoke English. Oh, they were afraid to say no. They would be killed if they said no. No, because if you study North Korean culture, they have something called the Juche idea. And the Juche idea is about the power of human creativity. They truly believe that they are creative. But wait, they are not creative. No, but that's not what we're asking. We're asking if they think they're creative. So why do North Koreans think that they are so creative? Because they're living on an island. If you live on an island and you never meet another human being in your life, an isolated island, you're going to think you're the most beautiful person in the world, the smartest person in the world, and the most creative person in the world. And that's why North Korea scores #1. Kind of explains why America is also #2. They never travel. Actually, the country with the lowest level of creative confidence is South Korea. Last time I was in South Korea, 300 people in the audience. Is creativity important in your job? Yes, everyone said yes. Second question, do you think you are creative? Not a single person, not one. So I said, come on, someone, anyone. One guy raised his hand and said no. He just wanted to clarify something. He said no, not compared to Leonardo da Vinci. That's the Asian way of thinking. Are you creative? No, not compared to the most creative person who has ever lived. What's the American way of thinking? Are you creative? Hell yeah, compared to my brother. So just because we think we are something doesn't mean that we are. But in Europe, we don't even think that we are. I mean, for a Western system, compared to the Americans, we are much less confident. Compared to the world, we are slightly better. But we could be so much better. And here's the third question, maybe the most depressing one. Do you think your company is doing enough to develop your creativity, that skill that was so important? Let's do this one also here. How many of you think that your company is doing enough to develop the creativity of its employees? Yeah. Average 2%. Those two people are usually HR manager and the person sitting next to HR manager. Now, my point here, of course, is, so everyone says creativity is important in my job. Most people say it's a very important skill, but I don't know how to do it. And no one says I'm being taught how to be creative. I am not being taught by my employer, I'm not being taught by my society, and I'm not being taught in school. No one has taught me how to be creative. Basically saying, no one has taught me how to play. So why is this a problem? Because that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about why is it a problem if people do not play. Here is the problem. Yes, so Singapore scores very high on these tests that we measured them on knowledge. But that doesn't make someone valuable for society. It's not good enough to have the knowledge. So I'm going to give you a little example. Unfortunately, this story involves a German. I hope that's okay. Are there any Germans in the room? I don't know. Yeah, okay. You have a sense of humor, right? Okay. Good. This is a story about what happens when we do not have the ability to think creatively, but we just do the right thing. Story about my brother. He's on vacation. He comes down to the swimming pool. This is the swimming pool. There's no one else in the swimming pool. The swimming pool is empty. And there's a German sitting here next to the swimming pool. So my brother comes into the swimming pool, jumps into the swimming pool, starts to swim. So let me ask you a question. How are we supposed to swim in a swimming pool? How are we supposed to swim in a swimming pool? Anyone? Here you go. Back and forth like this. So let me ask you a question. Why are we supposed to swim like this? What is the purpose? Why are we supposed to? There must be a reason. What's the reason? Because? Huh? Performance. What is the performance? Yes, correct. See? We always have a good reason for why we do things. It's very efficient. It's the longest without turning, right? Yes, everyone goes, yeah, except that's not true. This is the longest without turning, correct? So just because we think we have logical and correct answers for something doesn't mean we necessarily are right, right? The reason is not because it's the longest. The reason is it's the longest without pissing other people off. But remember, there was no one else in the swimming pool. There was no one to piss off. So technically, he should now be swimming like this. Do you think he did? Because we're conditioned not to question rules. We're conditioned to do things the way we've been told to do them. So he swims like this. Now here's the problem. This part of the swimming pool is in the shadow. And every time my brother comes into this part of the swimming pool, it becomes cold and uncomfortable. But he continues to swim like this because you're supposed to swim like that. Then suddenly he has an idea. He says to himself, wait, I'm the only person here. I can swim like this. So he starts to swim like that. You know what's going to happen, right? German man stands up, walks up to the swimming pool, looks at my brother and says, excuse me, you are swimming the wrong way. My brother thinks he's kidding, so he says, yes, I know, and he continues to swim like this. German man comes back, this time he's angry, screaming at my brother. I told you, you are swimming the wrong way! So my brother does the Swedish thing. What's the Swedish thing? Yep, absolutely. No, actually, first he starts to argue. He says, actually, I know I'm supposed to swim like this. I did swim like this, but you see, this part was in the shadow, became cold and uncomfortable, so I thought maybe I can swim like this, and since I'm the only person in the swimming pool, I'm not disturbing anyone. German says, you are disturbing me. My brother gets so shocked, he starts to swim like this again. But then he says, no, wait, who is this man to tell me how I'm supposed to swim in a swimming pool? So he starts to swim like this again. And then, just to piss the German off, he starts to swim in circles. Then the German left. Now, just so I know it's sensitive to make jokes about different nationalities in the European Union, so just to be sure, Germans don't get offended, right? Because I was recently in Germany, I did this speech in Germany, and a guy comes up afterwards and he says, you! I said, yes. About that speech? I go, which one? The one about the pool. Yes, it is true. We are just like that. But then he added, but have you been to Switzerland? Okay, so I was talking about Singapore. Oh, that's such a good country. We need to learn from them. They're so good at the test. Well, let me show you what happens if you come to a country that behaves like this. This is a true story, and it happened to me in Singapore. It's a Singaporean bank, and I walk into this bank. There are 4 happy tellers sitting here waiting for clients. There's not a single person in the room. The bank is just open, no customers, and they have this. You know what I'm talking about? Queuing mechanism thingy. And there's a big Indian guard standing here. So I walk into this bank, and I see this, I see them, I don't see a single client. Obviously, I just do this. She looks at me, and she says, excuse me, you have to walk through the thing. I go, what? Now she thinks I don't speak English. You have to walk through the thing? I said, I hear you. I don't understand you. You see, I write books on creativity. You are not going to make me walk through that thing unless you give me a reason. We have our rules. I find that works on Singaporeans. It doesn't work on us. You have to give me a real reason, or I'm not going to do it. Guard comes up. Is there a problem here? I go, no. And I find myself in Singapore, walking through this thing. I come up to the yellow line, I look at the yellow line, I stand behind the yellow line, I look at her, she smiles, and she says, next. Welcome to Singapore. Very good at doing things right. But doing things right is not enough, because if you just do things right, you won't see progress. This is a picture of the first train. It's an exact replica of a horse carriage, because people were building horse carriages, someone invents the train, and the right way to do a horse carriage is to do it this way, so the first train looked just like this. Here's the first car. I was recently doing a speech for the car industry, European car industry, and I showed this picture to them. I said, come on, you're just doing highly advanced horse carriages. In 100 years, how much have you been able to innovate? And the guy said, well, we turned 2 guys around. But think about this. The internet has been around for 15 years. Wireless internet has been around for 10 years. How much internet is there in a brand new car? Hardly anything. Why not? Because cars didn't used to have internet. If we are just good at doing things the way we have been told how to do them, which is the traditional way of learning things, the one that Singapore and Shanghai is so good at, you are very good at answering correctly. But you are not innovating. You are not seeing new opportunities, and you are not understanding what new technologies could be used for. So let me tell you a story. I recently did a speech for a company called AkzoNobel. It's the world's largest paint company. I met with the R&D department, and I met with the head of the R&D, and he said that they have just now invented a new paint that is using nanotechnology, and the paint is one color, but everyone sees another color. Amazing, isn't it? It is purple, but everyone sees yellow. It's very difficult to understand. He said, our biggest problem is we can't get anyone to understand what the hell we're going to use it for. It's a multi-billion-dollar market, but we don't know what it is because we can't find anyone to tell us what to use it for. And he said, I'm not looking for people with knowledge. I can go to India and I can buy knowledge for €1 per hour. I'm looking for people with imagination. There's only one way to figure out how to use anything new, and it's not with knowledge, it's with creativity and imagination. It's to play around with it to see what we could do with it. Agree? So I thought we should do one test. We're going to do an imagination exercise to honor this guy from AkzoNobel. It's a very simple test. It goes like this. Use your imagination and say something that is impossible. You're going to say 10 things, loud and clear so I can hear you, and not everyone at the same time. Use your imagination and say something that is impossible. Here we go. Number 1. Huh? Use your imagination and say something that's impossible. Come on. Night and day at the same time. Okay. I thought that was called dawn. Okay, night and day. Anyone else? Dry water. Use your imagination and say something that's impossible. An apple orange, okay? Anyone else? Go back in time, a time machine. Use your imagination, say something that is impossible. Cold sunlight, yes? Anyone else? Sorry? Flying without help. Yes, anyone else? Never sleep. I thought that was called European Union. Okay, 3 more. No, that's highly unlikely, but it's not impossible. And then 3 more. Speed of light. And 2 more. Sorry? No time. Okay. And 1 more. Movable, a movable hole. A hole that can be moved. Huh, very interesting. Very good. Now, let's see. If I do this exercise on the most common, oops, okay. So let's see. Now I'm going to do this very simply. Actually, first, before, we have to, there is someone sitting here now saying, God, that was a stupid exercise, wasn't it? That's stupid, that was childish. Well, let me show you why we did this. We did this because things that used to be impossible, thanks to innovation and technology, suddenly becomes possible. When you were born, this was impossible. Imagine if we could have a telephone inside a watch with no cable attached. 50 years later, now we have it. When I show this one in China, they say, why so big? This is my favorite. 50 years ago, imagine if we didn't have to clean our homes. Imagine if robots would clean the homes for us. 50 years later, here they are. And I recently did a speech in Sweden, and a Swede said, which one is the robot? Yeah, I know, it's not a funny joke in Europe. But in the rest of the world, they laugh. The thing is, he wasn't making a joke. It was not a sexist joke. It was a person who was working in the robot industry. And he said, this red thing over here, 10 years ago, that was a cool robot. But if you go on a robot exhibition today and you show this red thing, no one will be interested. This is not a cool robot anymore because 10 years have changed anything in robots. And today, if you go on a robot exhibition and you show her, they might get interested. And if you don't believe me, Google robots on YouTube, robots 2013, and you will see that robots today look like her. What will robots look like 10 years from now? That means we need people who can come up with things that we never had before. Now I'm going to say you were quite a good group. I must say, I've done this test, I think, 1,500 times, and you're probably the best group I have ever had. That's a good sign. Normally, if I do this, these are the most common answers. Fly, okay, we have this. Time travel, we had that. Speed of light, we had that. So 3 of the 10 are on the most common guesses. But let's see, apart from them, night and day at the same time, who said that? Have you ever heard that before, or did you just come up with that? Yeah, good. So that means you were actually doing what I asked you to do. I asked you to not give you knowledge, but come up with imagination, something we haven't heard before. Okay, dry water, who said that? Have you heard that before, or you come up with it? Very good, so that's actually an idea. Apple and orange, have you heard that before, or just came up with it? Very good. Never sleep, well, that one we've heard before. No time, we heard that before. What was that? Hall. Who said that? Have you ever heard that before, or you just came up with it? That's unbelievable. So we have 1, 2, 3. We actually had 5 people who used their creativity and imagination and came up with something that we haven't heard before. That is very, very rare that happens. Most of the time, 9 out of 10 in a group will say something that they have heard before. And normally, they will say these, because they just give us knowledge. So what would happen if we had people who had the ability to come up and use their creativity and play and come up with something that we haven't seen before? So I'm going to end by showing you what happens when that happens. It's a Swedish guy, Swedish photographer, and it's 1989. Fall of the Berlin Wall. You remember it? Of course you do. What did all press photographers go? Where did they go? Which picture did they take? They went to Brandenburger Tor, yes? Yeah. Great idea. Here's the problem. So did everyone else. Everyone went to West Berlin. Everyone took a picture of the wall. This is the expected thing to do. This is a creative thought. No one had ever done it before. The wall had never fallen before. But they did. They came up with the same idea, everyone. Everyone but one. Swedish photographer. He didn't go to West Berlin. He went to Cairo. No, I'm just kidding. That would be so stupid. No, he didn't go to Cairo. He went to West Berlin. He went to West Berlin like everyone else. And he took a picture from there like everyone else. But then he had the ability to say to himself, wait, maybe I can play around a bit. Maybe I can take a picture slightly different than other people did. Maybe I can go slightly further and take another picture. So he went to East Berlin. He's the only guy who did, and he's the only guy who took this picture. Now there are 100,000 pictures from this side, and there's one photo from this side. Take a guess, which one was voted best picture in Europe 1990? Obviously this one. Why? Because this is different. Because it is creative. It's creative because it is different. If everyone went to East Berlin, everyone took this picture, he was the only guy going to West Berlin, he's the only guy taking this picture, this would be picture of the year. Creativity is not being crazy. It's not doing crazy stuff. It's doing things, rearranging things that we are already doing in a slightly different manner that makes it better than what we did before. That's playing around with the things that we have. It's 20 meters further. That's what we need people to do, to learn to go 20 meters further and try something that we haven't tried before. So I'm now going to end. And I thought, how can I end? I only had 30 minutes. How can I end in a way that they don't forget you? And you can never do that anywhere else but in Europe. But I'm going to end with a picture of me. Naked. You will never forget that. It's a picture I usually show when I do talks on entrepreneurship for schools, to tell them what entrepreneurship is. And entrepreneurship is about having an idea and going for it. Are you ready? Me naked in the European Union Parliament. Something to remember. Here we go. Okay, not that bad. It's a picture of me and my twin brother. Who is me and who is my twin brother? Well, obviously, the lower one must be me because, yeah, I don't want to be the top one. So what is this picture to me? It's a picture of what creativity is all about. You are naked, you are vulnerable, you are running full speed ahead because you have this idea that you want to make it happen, and boom, you fall on your face, you get sand in your eyes, you cry for a bit, you stand up, you brush yourself off, and you start running again because you just have to make this idea happen. That is what creativity is, that's what entrepreneurship is, and that is what it means to be a kid. I'm not saying creativity is to be childish. It's not what it's about. It is about having that same energy to try new things and not just doing it the right way, but combining things in a way we haven't seen before. And God knows that Europe, and not only Europe, the world, we need much better ways of doing things than we are doing them right now. So, time to play some more. Good luck with that. Thank you very much.
We heard from specialists in the room how important play is for the mental evolution and development of people. And I think not just children, even adults. So there is no doubt about that. And we need to enable this environment, especially in a time of crisis. We need the regenerating effect that play brings into our lives.